Hey everyone, Charlotte here. I'm recording this from my car in a Target parking lot because I literally cannot go home right now. I've been sitting here for 2 hours just trying to process what happened at Christmas dinner tonight. My hands are still shaking. I've cried so much my face is puffy, and I honestly don't know what to do next. So I need to tell you this whole story because I feel like I'm losing my mind. This has been building for 3 years, and tonight, everything finally exploded in the worst way possible. Let me give you some background. My name is Charlotte. I'm 29 years old, and I've been married to my husband Jake for 2 years. We dated for 3 years before that, so we've been together for 5 years total. Jake is 31, he's a civil engineer, and honestly, he's the love of my life. He's kind, supportive, funny, and we have this amazing partnership where we genuinely enjoy being together. But then there's his mother, Linda. From the very first time I met Linda, I could tell she didn't like me. It was at a family barbecue about 4 months into my relationship with Jake. I remember being so nervous because meeting the parents is always a big deal, right? I wore a nice sundress, brought homemade brownies, practiced conversation topics in my head, the whole thing. When Jake introduced me, Linda looked me up and down, and her first words to me were, "Oh, you're shorter than I expected." Not "nice to meet you" or "Jake has told us so much about you." Just a comment about my height. I'm 5'3", by the way, which is perfectly average, but apparently not up to Linda's standards. Throughout that first barbecue, Linda asked me questions that felt more like an interrogation. Where did I go to college? What do my parents do? What neighborhood did I grow up in? What kind of career prospects did my degree offer? It felt less like getting to know me and more like she was assessing whether I was worthy of her son. Jake's dad, Robert, was nice though. He asked me about my hobbies, we talked about hiking, and he seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me as a person. But Linda just kept watching me with this tight smile that never reached her eyes. After that first meeting, Jake assured me that his mom was just protective and that she'd warm up to me. And I believed him because I loved him and I wanted to believe that his mother would eventually see what he saw in me. But it never happened. Over the next 5 years, Linda has made it her mission to remind me, in both subtle and not so subtle ways, that I'm not good enough for her precious son. Let me give you some examples of the things Linda has done over the years. When Jake and I got engaged after 3 years of dating, Linda cried, but not happy tears. She literally cried and told Jake in front of me, "Are you sure about this? You're so young. There's no rush." I was standing right there. Jake defended me and said he was absolutely sure, but Linda just pressed her lips together and said, "Well, I hope you know what you're doing." When we were planning our wedding, Linda tried to take over everything. She didn't like my choice of venue. She said it was too casual, even though it was a beautiful vineyard. She hated my dress, said it was too modern, and that I should wear something more classic and elegant. She even told Jake that my bridesmaids' dresses were tacky and made her embarrassed to be associated with the wedding. The worst part was when she tried to cut my guest list to make room for more of her friends and distant relatives. She told Jake that my family was taking up too much space and that since they were paying for part of the wedding, they contributed about 30% while Jake and I paid for the rest. They should have more say in who was invited. Jake and I held firm on most things, but it was exhausting. Our wedding should have been this joyful experience, and instead, I spent half of it managing Linda's opinions and criticisms. On our actual wedding day, Linda wore white, not ivory, not cream, bright white, and when people pointed it out, she said, "Oh, this old thing? I've had it in my closet for years." I didn't think anyone would mind. She knew exactly what she was doing. After we got married, things didn't improve. Linda has made comments about everything from my housekeeping. She did a white glove test on our coffee table once and said, "I raised Jake to value cleanliness, to my cooking." She once came over for dinner. I made this pot roast that Jake loves, and she took one bite and said, "It's interesting. Not how I make it, but interesting." She's also constantly bringing up Jake's ex-girlfriend from college. Her name is Stephanie, and apparently Linda loved her. She'll randomly say things like, "Oh, Stephanie used to make the best apple pie. Jake, do you remember Stephanie's apple pie?" Or, "I ran into Stephanie's mother at the grocery store." Stephanie is doing so well. She's a lawyer now, you know. But it's like she wants to remind me that there was someone before me who she deemed more suitable. Linda has also made comments about my career. I work in digital marketing, which I love, and I'm good at it. I've worked my way up to a senior position, I make decent money, and I find the work fulfilling. But Linda doesn't think it's impressive enough. She'll say things like, marketing, that's nice. It must be fun to work on social media all day, as if that's all my job is. She's also made comments about my family. My parents are wonderful people. My dad is a high school teacher and my mom is a nurse. They're not wealthy, but they raised me and my siblings with so much love and taught us the value of hard work and kindness. But Linda has made snide comments about how her family comes from a different background and how Jake is used to a certain lifestyle. The lifestyle comments really bother me because Jake and I are both working professionals who split our expenses and live comfortably. It's not like Jake came from extreme wealth. Robert is a retired accountant, and Linda worked in hospital administration before retiring. But Linda acts like they're royalty, and I'm some peasant who married up. She's also obsessed with us having children. Jake and I have been very open about the fact that we want to wait a few years before having kids. We want to travel, save money, and just enjoy being married before we take that step. But Linda brings it up constantly. She'll say things like, I'm not getting any younger, you know. I'd like to be a grandmother while I can still keep up with children. Or, all of Jake's cousins are having babies. It would be nice if he could give me a grandchild, too. She once even said, I hope you're not one of those career women who waits too long and then can't have children. That comment hurt a lot, because it implied that my career goals are somehow selfish, and that my worth as a woman is tied to my ability to produce grandchildren for her. Jake defends me when he hears these comments, but Linda is smart about it. She often makes these remarks when Jake isn't around or when she can play it off as a joke. And then when Jake confronts her, she acts like I'm being oversensitive and that she was just kidding or just making conversation. I've tried everything to win Linda over. I've invited her to lunch, just the two of us. I've asked for her recipes and tried to make her favorite dishes. I've bought her thoughtful gifts for her birthday and Mother's Day. I've complimented her, asked for her advice, and tried to show interest in her hobbies, but nothing works. She remains cold and critical, always finding something wrong with me. Jake's sister, Emily, is actually great. She's 2 years younger than Jake, and she and I get along really well. Emily has told me multiple times that Linda is just particular, and that she was the same way with Emily's husband at first. But Emily also admitted that Linda warmed up to him much faster than she's warmed up to me, if you can even call what Linda does to me warming up. So that brings us to this Christmas. This horrible, awful Christmas. Jake and I have been alternating holidays with our families. This year, it was his family's turn for Christmas. We spent Christmas Eve with my family, which was lovely and warm and everything the holidays should be, and then we drove to Linda and Robert's house on Christmas Day for dinner. I was already anxious about it because last year's Christmas with them had been tense. Linda had made comments about my weight. I'd gained maybe 5 pounds, and she said, "Charlotte, you're looking healthy," in that tone that really means you've gained weight. She'd also given me a gym membership as a Christmas gift, which felt like a pointed insult. Jake and I had a pact that we'd present a united front and that we'd leave early if things got uncomfortable. We arrived at Linda and Robert's house around 3 p.m. Robert greeted us warmly with hugs. Linda gave Jake a huge hug and kiss, and then she gave me a stiff side hug and said, "Charlotte, you're here." Not, "Merry Christmas," or "So glad you could make it." Just an acknowledgement of my presence. Emily and her husband Mark were already there with their 1-year-old daughter Olivia. I immediately went to play with Olivia because she's adorable and because it gave me something to do other than make awkward small talk with Linda. Dinner was at 5 p.m. Linda had made a huge spread. Ham, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, salad, the works. I offered to help set the table or do anything, and Linda said, No, I have a system. You'll just get in the way." So I sat in the living room with Jake and Mark, feeling useless. When we sat down to eat, Linda had done a whole formal table setting with place cards. She'd seated Jake at one end of the table next to her, and she'd seated me at the opposite end, next to Robert. Jake and I literally couldn't have been farther apart. The dinner conversation started out okay. Robert asked Jake about work. Emily talked about Olivia's milestones. Mark shared some funny story about their recent vacation. I chimed in here and there, but mostly I was quiet, trying to just get through the meal. Then Linda brought out dessert. this elaborate homemade chocolate cake, and as she was serving it, she started talking about Jake's childhood Christmases. She was going through all these nostalgic memories, showing us old photos on her phone, and it was actually kind of nice. But then she pulled up a photo of Jake and Stephanie from a Christmas party in college, and she said, "Oh look, here's Jake and Stephanie at the Christmas formal his junior year. Don't they look wonderful together?" Stephanie always knew how to dress for formal. I felt my stomach clench. Jake looked uncomfortable and said, "Mom, why are you showing us this?" Linda acted innocent. "What? I'm just reminiscing." Stephanie was such a lovely girl. So polished and well-mannered. She came from such a good family. I kept my mouth shut, but I could feel my face getting hot. Emily looked at me sympathetically. Linda continued, "You know, I always thought you and Stephanie would end up together, Jake. You two were so well suited. Same background, same values, it just made sense." Jake put his fork down. "Mom, that's inappropriate. I'm married to Charlotte now." Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I know, honey. I'm just saying. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you two had stayed together. Things might have been different. She meant better. She meant that Jake's life would be better if he'd married Stephanie instead of me. I could feel tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. I was not going to cry at Linda's table. Robert cleared his throat and tried to change the subject, asking Mark about his job. But Linda wasn't done. She looked at me directly and said, "Charlotte, I'm curious. What are your plans for the new year? Career-wise, I mean?" I said, I'm actually hoping for a promotion in the spring. I've been working on some big campaigns and my boss has hinted that there might be opportunities for advancement." Linda nodded slowly. "That's nice. But, at some point, you might want to think about what's really important. Family, for instance. Jake needs a partner who's going to prioritize him and your future children, not someone who's always focused on climbing the corporate ladder." I felt like I'd been slapped. "I do prioritize Jake. We're partners. We both have careers." Linda smiled that tight smile. "Of course, dear. I'm just saying that there's a difference between having a job and having a career that consumes all your time and energy. When I was your age, I knew that my family came first. That's how I was raised. That's the proper way." The word proper hit me like a physical blow. She was calling me improper, saying I wasn't raised right. Jake interjected, "Mom, Charlotte is an amazing wife. She doesn't need to defend her career or how she prioritizes our marriage." But Linda kept going, and I could see that she'd been building up to this. She'd been holding this in for years, and she'd decided that Christmas dinner was the perfect time to let it all out. She said, "Jake, honey, I love you, and I only want what's best for you. But I have to be honest. I've tried to hold my tongue for years now, but I can't anymore. Charlotte is not the right woman for you." The room went completely silent. Emily said, "Mom, stop." But Linda didn't stop. She looked at me and said, "You come from a different world than we do, Charlotte. Different values, different standards, different expectations. You're not proper. You're not refined. You don't understand what it means to be part of a family like ours." I was shaking. I said, "Linda, I've been nothing but respectful to you and your family for 5 years."
She cut me off. Respectful?
"You trapped my son into marriage. You knew he was a good man from a good family, and you latched onto him. You saw an opportunity, and you took it." "Mom, that is completely out of line." "Apologize to Charlotte right now." Linda stood up too. "I will not apologize for speaking the truth. Jake, you are my son, and I have watched you settle for someone who is beneath you. Charlotte is not sophisticated enough, not accomplished enough, not from the right background. She doesn't fit into our family, and she never will." I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They just started streaming down my face. I stood up and said, "I've spent 5 years trying to be good enough for you. 5 years of your criticisms and your comments and your comparisons to Jake's ex-girlfriend, and nothing I do is ever enough. I'm never going to be enough for you, because you decided from the moment you met me that I wasn't worthy of your son." Linda crossed her arms. "That's because you're not. Jake could have married someone like Stephanie. Someone with class and breeding. Someone who knows how to conduct herself properly. But instead, he married you. And now he's stuck." Jake was furious. "Charlotte is not beneath me. She's my equal, she's my partner, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. How dare you speak to my wife this way? Robert finally stood up and said, "Linda, that's enough. You've gone too far." But Linda wasn't backing down. She looked at Jake and said, "If you stay married to her, you're going to regret it. She's going to hold you back from your potential. She's not good enough for you, and deep down you know it." I grabbed my purse. I couldn't be in that house for another second. I said, "Jake, I need to leave, now." Jake immediately said, "Absolutely. We're leaving." He looked at his mother and said, "What you just said to Charlotte is unforgivable. You've been horrible to her for years, and I've tried to excuse it or minimize it, but I can't anymore. You owe her an apology, and until you give her one, a real sincere apology, we won't be coming back." "So you're choosing her over your own mother?" Jake said. "I'm choosing my wife, which is exactly what I should be doing. And the fact that you're making me choose shows exactly who you are." Emily came over to me and hugged me. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, Charlotte. She was completely wrong." Jake and I walked out. We got into our car and I immediately started sobbing. Not quiet crying, full on, gasping, ugly crying. Jake pulled over after a few blocks and just held me while I cried. He kept saying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have put a stop to this years ago. I should have protected you better." I told him it wasn't his fault, but I think part of me does blame him a little. Not for Linda's behavior, that's all on her, but for not standing up to her more firmly earlier on. For brushing off her comments as just how she is. For asking me to keep trying with her even when it was clear she would never accept me. We drove around for a while, neither of us wanting to go home yet. That's when I told Jake I needed some time alone, and he dropped me off at my car. We'd driven separately to my parents' house yesterday and I'd left my car there, so we swung by to pick it up. And now I'm here in this Target parking lot telling you this whole story. My phone has been blowing up. Emily has texted me multiple times saying how sorry she is and that Linda was completely out of line. Robert texted Jake saying he's ashamed of Linda's behavior and that he wants to apologize to me personally. But nothing from Linda. No apology, no acknowledgement that she said anything wrong. Radio silence. Jake has been texting me every few minutes asking if I'm okay and telling me to come home whenever I'm ready. He's also told me that he meant what he said. We're not going back to his parents' house until Linda apologizes to me properly. But here's what I'm struggling with. What if she never apologizes? What if Linda genuinely believes everything she said? That I'm not good enough, that I trapped Jake, that I'm beneath their family? How do I move forward from this? How do I stay married to Jake knowing that his mother hates me and thinks I'm not proper or refined or good enough for her son? And the worst part is that Linda's words are in my head now. I keep replaying them. "You're not refined. You're not from the right background. You trapped him. You're not good enough." What if she's right? Not about trapping Jake. I know that's not true. But what if I'm really not good enough? What if I'm holding Jake back? What if he could have had a better life with someone more like Stephanie? I know logically that this is Linda's voice in my head and not the truth. Jake loves me. He chose me. He married me. He stood up for me tonight. But it's hard to shake these feelings when someone has been telling you for 5 years that you're not good enough. I also feel guilty. Jake is now in a position where he's had to essentially cut off his mother because of me. Yes, Linda's behavior is her fault, but I'm still the reason for the conflict. If Jake had married someone Linda approved of, he wouldn't be in this position. I don't know what happens next. Do Jake and I go to family therapy? Do we demand couples therapy with Linda? Do we just cut her out of our lives completely? What about future holidays? What about when we have kids? Do we let Linda be involved, or do we keep our children away from someone who has such disdain for their mother? And how do I get past this hurt? Because right now, sitting in this parking lot, I feel broken. I feel like every insecurity I've ever had about not being good enough has been validated by someone who was supposed to become my family. I've been crying in this parking lot for 2 hours now. Other shoppers have walked by and given me concerned looks. One woman even knocked on my window to ask if I was okay, and I had to assure her I was fine, even though I'm clearly not fine. The thing that hurts the most is that I really did try. I tried so hard to make Linda like me. I swallowed my pride, I bit my tongue, I made efforts. And none of it mattered because she decided from day one that I wasn't good enough. And nothing was ever going to change her mind. Jake just texted me again. "Please come home. We'll figure this out together. I love you so much, and I'm so sorry for everything my mother said. None of it is true. You are more than enough. You are everything. I know I need to go home. I know Jake and I need to talk about how we're gonna handle this, but I'm scared. I'm scared of what this means for our marriage. I'm scared that this rift with Linda will cause problems between Jake and me down the road. I'm scared that I'll never feel fully secure in Jake's family. I'm also angry. I'm so angry at Linda for doing this at Christmas, for saying those things to me, for making me feel small and inadequate. I'm angry that she couldn't just let her son be happy. I'm angry that she values breeding and background over kindness and love. But underneath the anger, there's just this deep sadness, because I wanted Linda to like me. I wanted her to see me the way Jake sees me. I wanted to be part of his family. And tonight made it crystal clear that's never going to happen. So, here I am, 29 years old, sitting in a Target parking lot on Christmas night, crying my eyes out because my mother-in-law told me I'm not good enough for her son. If anyone has been through something similar, please tell me how you got through it. Tell me how you moved past this kind of rejection. Tell me how you stayed married to someone when their parent actively despised you. Because right now, I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to go home and face Jake, even though I know he loves me and supports me. I don't know how to walk into work next week and pretend everything is fine. I don't know how to smile and act normal when I feel like I've been emotionally gutted. All I know is that this was supposed to be a beautiful Christmas. And instead, it became the night my mother-in-law finally said out loud what she's been thinking for 5 years, that I'm not proper, not good enough, and not worthy of her son. And I don't know if I'll ever unhear those words. I'm Charlotte, and I'm sitting in a Target parking lot trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces of what was supposed to be a Merry Christmas. If you're going through something similar, if you have in-laws who don't accept you, or family members who make you feel small, just know you're not alone. And if you have any advice on how to deal with this, I'm all ears, because I really need help figuring out what to do next.